Hello my fellow warriors, hope you're doing well. Although I came back to streaming and working on both my Ruination book video and Final Fantasy edits, I thought I should still make a recap of 2022 and tell you of my plans for 2023. So without further ado, let's get started. Unlike this year, 2022 started with a breathtaking cinematic that had us all clutching our pearls. A continuation of several incredible lore stories that I've covered in my reaction. I thought this year's cinematic we would receive a continuation to the previous cinematic, but unfortunately it fell through for reasons that are unknown to us. I'll expand more on that later. Soon after the cinematic, where my man proved that his heart doesn't belong just to me, the Luna Reveal cinematic came out and fed us Mommy Lysandra dominating 𝙗𝙤𝙧𝙞𝙬. And speaking of dummy mommies, let's remember the most iconic release of that year, Renata motherfucking Glask, who came 2 weeks later and made everyone's needy bottom dreams come true. And although the year started amazing, soon enough came February 20th, the day Russia invaded Ukraine. And what was happiness and excitement turned into fear, devastation, heartbreak, and pure rage. Johnny and I actually planned a trip around that time to finally get married and celebrate with our families, but instead we canceled everything and I was forced to accept the fact that my mother, family, and friends were all in immediate danger. FYI, the invasion might have happened on July 4th, but this war has been going on since 2014. So for any of you who are looking to blame this invasion on anyone but Russia, this is your time to get educated. For those of you who are unfamiliar with events of 2014, I recommend you go and check out my mom's Oscar-nominated movie Winter on Fire, which breaks it down perfectly. The footage was collected by her and her team of investigative journalists, who at the time were the only channel streaming everything live. That was the first time the world saw who us Ukrainians are and what we're willing to fight for. The movie itself can be found for free on Netflix's YouTube channel. If you have any questions regarding the movie, you can drop them in the comments and/or message me on Discord. We weren't really prepared for a full-scale invasion, but as a battle-hardened nation, every babusa in the neighborhood pulled out the flints and bottles the same way we did back then. Because no fascist imperial scum is going to break us. No one will dictate who we are, and no one will take away our identity, no matter how many innocents they kill, rape, and kidnap into their territories. Naturally, I didn't want my mom getting involved in something like this again because she was on her own, but she refused and said, if I'm going to die, at least I'll die a hero. I can't describe to you what it's like to watch the country that shaped you into a better version of yourself, that gave you the greatest gift no one else could ever gift you, being trampled and destroyed before your very eyes, all while your loved ones are there. For the first 3 weeks, I was in a state of total shock. I was grieving, I couldn't sleep, and honestly, if not for Johnny, I don't know where my brain would have taken me at the time. But talking to him and my loved ones made me realize that either I accepted the reality that was forced upon me and used whatever time I had with my mother to help her however I could, or I could just keep mourning and just spiraling into the darkest depths of my very being. So at first I wanted to go to Ukraine and enlist into the military, because as someone with a military background, that was the only rational thought I had, since a lot of my friends already flew there at the time. But my mom needed me where I was, and so I became her informant, news source, spokesperson, manager, translator, and personal communicator, because I had access to the tech, power, and stable internet connection that she and her team did not. That's how I started translating Ukrainian news before the international journalistic teams were formed in Ukraine. Fought Russian propaganda because they tried everything to smear our names, shared our story everywhere I could, including the CBC, crowdfunded as best as I could, be it through organized social events like the Ink for Ukraine event we had, or online through SpotFund and PayPal, even though some of these so-called humanitarian organizations really tried to sabotage us. Built connections abroad and purchased humanitarian aid and life-saving military equipment thanks to the donations we've collected, and had my mom and her team physically distributed through landmined roads, all while dealing with the never-ending horrors that I had to look at, the gruesome loss of people that I've known, our house being destroyed, and my deteriorating mental health. But it all paid off. Thanks to your guys' contribution and our hard work, we've saved many lives by collecting over $80,000. Some went directly into humanitarian aid, which the large organizations never provided, and some to the territorial defense and volunteers who were forced to protect the cities and evacuate people with no protective gear, which resulted in many brave people's deaths, as the evacuation corridors were all death traps and the fields were all mined. At some point, we even started DIYing our own bullet vests. But luckily, we've managed to collect enough funds to buy not just high-grade protective gear, but also security drones, tactical medical kits, and emergency evacuation vehicles. I'd like to take this moment to thank Reddit's @Ukraine subreddit, whose mods and followers were the only reason why we could reach so many generous people, as well as amazing companies such as SpotFund and PayPal, who understood the situation and adapted their bureaucracies to our nation's needs. I would also like to thank mutual creators, acquaintances, and friends who went out of their way to help us out. And you, my fellow warriors, who not only donated and spread the word, but also had the compassion and emotional intelligence to understand why content making had to be paused. My priorities for 2022 were expand my growing channel, reaching Plat in League, and finish my Horny Hades series. But it was all halted by a reality that I've only heard about from my grandparents. And although I was dealing with the shitstorm, there were still some events that managed to cheer me up and disconnect me from the reality that I had to endure. Like the release of Nila and her 𝙤𝙬𝙦𝙨, Mommy 𝗵𝗀𝘃 and our gay icon 𝗀𝙬𝙧𝙞𝙀, TF and Graves finally coming out of the closet, Johnny and I getting married over a 20-minute Zoom call, an emotional music video from Porter Robinson, dancing in a cosplay with the ossified fiddlesticks, Star Guardians everything, including the Wildrift event, which I chose to narrate for some reason, Evelyn's Rentera voice interaction that made none other than Mara herself notice me and make me want to bury myself from embarrassment, my husband in all of his glory and his other boyfriend, 𝗵𝗍𝘀𝘀's epic ceremony, the iconic Lil Nas performance which triggered every single homophobe in the League of Legends community, my trip to South Sweden, which will forever be my favorite place in the world and the only place where I'm willing to touch some grass, and lastly, my meetup with 𝗵𝗍𝘀cie, which was absolutely incredible, even though Copenhagen tried to end me on 4 different occasions. Now when it comes to 2023, I don't really know what it's gonna hold. The war is far from over, but we're doing what we can. We're still collecting humanitarian aid, rebuilding our house, and hope that content-wise I'll actually have something to work with, because the current state of League's lore and the game is not great. We started the season with a non-conventional cinematic, which is something that is supposed to set the mood for the rest of the year. Usually it also comes with several short stories, but that never happened either. Apparently it was caused due to an internal issue we didn't get any information on, even though Riot said that they will be more transparent with us. What they did tell us was that although they had the budget and the team to make the cinematic, they didn't. But they will in 2024. Unfortunately, this executive fuck-up results in yet another failed project, death threats to Riot employees, and a post where they state they'll do better next time became a reoccurring theme. I believe that until Riot doesn't purge the rotten apples within its own company, issues like this will keep happening. And when it comes to the lore, I don't even know what to tell you, because majority of my mutuals who worked in the narrative team quit. From the little that I've been told, basically, if you expect for anything besides skin lines and or Game Pass events, you can forget about that. And I really hope that's not the case, but so far we didn't receive anything to change that statement. The only thing that keeps me going is knowing that riotforge might release the games that they've been teasing, because I know these games are in good hands and that I most likely enjoy them very, very much. Speaking of things I've been enjoying very, very much, Wildrift. I know I should talk it in the past, but man, I'm taking it all back. It's been an absolute blast playing and streaming it to you guys. The game is smoother, faster, chiller, prettier, balanced-er. I mean, look at this. Toxic players are actually dealt with on the spot. So basically the plan is to make content on anything riotforge related, the upcoming Hades game that will leave me parched, and streaming. Lots of fucking streaming. And also the Ruination book. I know, it's just there's so many cameos in that book that it's just really hard for me to compress it all. Anyway, I can't wait to share with you new videos and keep making you laugh during my lives. I'll try my best to do what I can, but remember that I still have offline duties to be dealing with. Thanks again for the support. Thank you for watching. I love you all, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.